Hello, and welcome to the Nature of Invisible Things of the podcast. I'm your host, Erin Kelly, and I'm so glad you're here. This is season 2, episode 16. And today, friend, I am joined by the delightful artist and astrologer, Janessa Quinn of By Jove Astrology. And so, together in this episode, we share some of our personal experiences that also happen to be shared. We're both Pisces risings with Libra suns. And so we talk about those fallen chart placements and how those experiences of them have changed over time. We also talk about Janessa's journey into astrology from casual interest to professional practice. And we also both attended NORWAC, the Northwest Astrology Conference, earlier this year, where we got to meet in person. And we talk about those experiences and those sessions and how they continue to impact our practice and our offerings today. We also dive into a juicy conversation about the changing nature of astrology, including our own sense of the collective and cultural shift from predictive pedagogy to a more personalized and experiential practice, as well as the role of astrology in navigating life's challenges and transitions by embracing the power of paradox. And so let me introduce Janessa to you. Janessa Quinn is an artist, astrologer, and mom extraordinaire located in Minnesota. As a tender of flame and keeper of hearth, she is here to inspire and encourage others to liberate themselves by remembering their fire within. With the help of her eighth house Libra sun and fiery chart ruler Jupiter in Aries, Janessa illuminates the treasure we can only find in the dark and boldly shares it with the world via her many offerings, including one on one sessions, workshops, writing, and her podcast, The Astro Garden. You can find out more about Janessa and her work by visiting her website, byjoveastrology.com, or on Instagram at byjoveastro. Janessa's podcast is available on all streaming platforms, including YouTube, and her writing is available on both her website and her Substack. So, welcome, Janessa. Welcome, Janessa, to the Nature of Invisible Things podcast. I am so glad you're here.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
I'm excited to have you. Because I've really enjoyed By Jove Astrology or Astrology by Jove. Did I get that
I
incorrect?
drove astrology. You had it right.
Okay. Sometimes I flip things around in my mind at the last second. It's like my Mercury likes to be like, well, wait a second. What if it's this? Show me a mirror image of it. But that's great. I've been following along. And then we happened to connect through Substack. And then I also learned that we had some similar astrology. And I just think that's so cool. So for listeners, could you share your big three and then anything else you'd like to share about your astrological signature?
Sure. So I'm a Pisces rising, Libra sun, 2852 Libra sun. So not quite the last degree, but just a couple minutes shy. And then I'm a 0 degree Scorpio moon. So new moon baby.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. That's amazing. I'm a Pisces rising. I'm a
Mhm.
Libra sun, 29 degrees and 34 minutes. And then my Libra moon, so I'm a new moon too, except I'm on the balsamic side. So I have a 24 and change Libra moon. So
Oh
that's so
wow. I don't think I
fascinating.
realized that piece, or I forgot if I did hear.
Yeah, it's just one of those details. Well, that's really exciting. And so I'm curious too, because we have that challenge with looking at our charts by whole sign to where our sun doesn't necessarily see the ascendant and vice versa. I'm curious, like, have you always felt connected to both your Piscean nature and your Libran nature, or did you, I'm curious, like, did you feel connected to one at a different time of your life than you maybe do now? And there's a reason I'm asking that, but
Yeah, I mean, I think at different points it's been different things. I do feel like there's always been this thing about like relationships that have been super important. And so like that was like a big focus for me and like it still is, but I like found my person, and that has totally now gone to the background or like
Hmm.
they're still there, like we have a good relationship, but like I feel like that kind of dominated a lot of my thoughts or like things I was doing, especially like in my teenage years or like younger years. Um, but like the Pisces piece, I feel like that is really the core of me and like little me, like my childhood. And like I feel like I've kind of come full circle and feel much more in tune with that now than like the middle section there or
Right.
something. How about you?
Yeah. Yeah, similar. So I really related to the Libra, which I already knew my sun sign when I was growing up. That was the extent of the astrology that I had exposure to. But yes, really, really identified with the Libra piece. And then when I learned about my rising sign, and as I've gotten older, I definitely feel like I've grown into my rising sign. I can see in looking back, like they've always kind of been there, but I definitely also really resonated when I found out that my son was in the eighth and some of the meanings of the eighth. I was like, ooh, like that makes so
Mhm.
much sense for so many parts of like my life. And you mentioned in your bio your Jupiter's in Aries.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, that's pretty exciting too. And so, having like that Jupiter, like kind of opposing you've got some connection with Jupiter in your sun by house then anyway, and versus like my Jupiter can't see my sun, but it can see my ascendant.
Oh, okay. Where's your Jupiter?
It's in Taurus. So I'm at the,
Oh, okay. In the third.
hmm
Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
but still like the Venus connection.
Hmm. Yeah. My Venus is in Sag too. So
Yeah.
there you
So
go.
there's maybe like a little, or no, the third house can't really see that either.
They can by degree because I'm 29 degrees Taurus for
Okay.
my Jupiter and then 2 degrees of Sag for my Venus. So if we take the houses out of it and the
Yeah.
signs and just do it by degree, they're technically opposite one another. That combination has got me in a little bit of trouble now and then.
Okay.
It's the
Sounds
it's the of course we can and more please thank you
yeah.
combination. So, yeah, that's amazing. Do you feel, I mean, clearly with the name of your astrology offering just as a whole, the by Jove astrology, you feel a connection with Jupiter.
Yeah, I really feel like having the eighth house sun and the Scorpio moon and like some of these like heavier, I also have a Scorpio Venus, so and Libra Mars also in the eighth
Huh.
house and the South Node there. So um there's just like a lot kind of happening and a lot of like detriment and exile or fall happening there between my placements, and it kind of felt like, and sometimes still does feel like, a lack of like sovereignty or something, and like that frustration with that, kind of like finding some relief and finding some sovereignty in that second house, Aries Jupiter. So that's kind of like, when I kind of get in like a mode of feeling maybe kind of petty or like
Mm,
emo about things, that like
hmm.
I can like swing out of that and like access the generosity and like the abundance and like the sovereignty that way via the Aries Jupiter.
Nice. I
So,
love that. I also have Scorpio Mars conjunct Uranus and the North Node in Scorpio. So I have a whole bunch going on there too.
yeah.
So I identify like it's so funny. I have the whole detriment fall mix. I've got a variety of things. Like my most strong dignified planet is my out of sect malefic.
Yeah.
It's like we're really good at making things difficult for you. But Oh, that's so funny. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I relate to the optimism of Jupiter. I mean, I think that's when I look back at themes throughout my life, I feel like even through the things that have been really challenging and hard, maybe not always right in the moment. And I definitely have times where I get very mm, pessimistic and, a little bit like, "Meh," like chip on my shoulder type of thing, which I think is another eighth house type of signature when you have a lot of eighth house energy.
Yeah.
I think we're just sometimes acutely attuned, and especially with it being Libra, just acutely attuned to what's fair and like what's not, and like all of the things that aren't said and all of the strings that are attached to interactions. And it can make it really challenging. And I don't like to say that I keep score of
Yeah.
fairness, but it's kind of hard not to. It's just kind of there.
Yeah, totally.
And I imagine with the Scorpio Venus too, like it can make that a challenge, right? With being able to like really feel, like to feel the tension.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Yeah, there's a lot of interplay between the houses for me, like with the, it's like some sort of, what is the word I'm blanking on? Reception between
Yeah.
this, and even though they're like averse houses. Um, so I think that that helps, but there is just a lot of that. And then the moon, I think in Scorpio, I see that one playing out a little bit. Like I think I have a tougher time with stuff with that than
Mm.
the Venus, but it's also hard to say because they're all there. It's like moon at 0, Pluto at 9, Mercury at 10, and Venus at 14. So it's like who is it? And my
Yeah.
like kind of part of that too at the late degree of Libra. So just
That's
like
amazing. Yeah, we have a similar, they're not arranged in the same order, but we both have a similar set of planets like up in that quadrant of the chart. Yeah, it's interesting. Wow. And so how did you come to astrology? I'm curious.
yeah. So I think, like most people, I had read horoscopes in like 17 magazine or like stuff like that growing up. But I was also raised like very Catholic and never really like gave it a lot of weight. And then, 2020 happened and I gave birth to my youngest in August of 2021. So we were already, like a year and a half into the pandemic at this point. Um, and it was a rough time. Like it was just a time that, like, it was a blessing. And I feel like you can see all of this, like in my son's birth chart, like overlaid with mine. But it really kind of pushed me past my breaking point. And like by January of that year, I was like, okay, this is like not working. Like whatever I've been doing is broken and I like need to do something different. So I actually started the Artist's Way and kind of got me like going on all of these different things. I first with that, like one of my first things was like I've always wanted to do yoga. So I like joined a yoga studio for the first time. Um, like a very cool witchy yoga studio that just like happened to be in my small town. So that was like amazing and really gave me like this space to explore what like myself and
Hmm.
have this time that was like, okay, I'm dedicating this time that I'm like not in my house with my kids or anyone else. And I'm like taking this time for me. And even though it's like a physical practice, it was very internal too. So there was
Hmm.
just a lot of time. Really, it's like meditating, right? Like I was going probably 3 to 4 times a week and all different types. And my one of my teachers there she would talk about astrology a lot. And it was kind of right when, in 2020, like astrology was blowing up. I started following Chani and then like other astrologers, but I still wasn't really like all in. And
Hmm.
then I think I downloaded the Chani app like in April or May of 2021. And this was, or I'm sorry, of 2022 now. Um, and this was when the Scorpio Taurus eclipses were happening, which I'm sure you
Oh,
probably.
yeah.
So those were happening in our third and ninth. And later that summer, I was listening to Aliza Kelly's podcast. Like I think it's Stars Like Us. I think she's had a couple, but she was interviewing Richard Tarnas actually on there, and like he like had all of this data that he had used to track these outer planet transits. And like as soon as I heard that there was like this data piece of like, whatever evidence I needed to hear at the time, like my brain like broke. And I was like, no, like this is what I'm gonna do. Like I
Hmm.
want to know everything. That was like June, I think. And then by August, I had registered for Nightlight Astrology's first year class. I hadn't even had my first reading yet. I think I got a reading towards the end of August. But yeah, I was like, I'm all in. I need to do this. And here we are.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, it's so exciting to follow a pull like that and to have this kind of nice organic way of kind of following your bliss in some way to like this self-discovery and then getting to like get a little piece here and get a little piece there and then it weaves all together into this very cool um, experience that you get to have and now share with other people. And did you, so it's one thing to learn everything about astrology and follow it, but it's another thing to then go ahead and offer consultations and like be an astrologer or like kind of claim that. And so I'm curious, like, was that always kind of present from the get-go, or was that something that as you kind of move through this process, you're like, wow, this is something I actually don't want to just learn it for myself, but I need to share this with other people.
I think it was pretty immediate that I was like, I need to do this as like a profession. Um, I think like I don't think I realized until that interview with Richard Tarnas either that it was like this huge academic piece. Like I think I'd heard, Chani is great and like obviously has studied and uses like all of the techniques that are, traditional astrology, all of the techniques. But like the way she frames it is so like in line with pop culture and like you wouldn't always guess that there's like this whole other thing like under it's like the iceberg, right? Like
Mhm.
there's actually like a ton to this. And then when I realized that, I think I was like, oh, this is like something I want to dedicate my life to. And like um I just it was immediate. I was like, I'm
Mhm.
an astrologer and share this with everyone.
Yeah, yeah, that I feel your Aries Jupiter when you say that. It's like everybody needs this and I'm
Yeah.
so excited like the immediacy of it, that very cardinal fire type of thing. Yeah, that's really really cool. And right now like we've connected a couple of times both online, but then I got to meet you in person at
Yes.
NORWAC,
Yes.
which is the Northwest Astrology Conference for those listening, if you're not familiar. And this was, I think, the 41st year that they've had the conference. So it's been going on for a while. It was my fourth time going, and I think it was your first, you mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. My very
How did
first.
you like it?
I loved it. It was so amazing. Like I really thought going into it, you hear people say how overwhelming it gets and like just the amount of people and the amount of learning and like I definitely there were points when it felt like that, but like for the most part, it was just so energizing and like like I didn't leave there exhausted. I left like just very jazzed about all the things I learned and like all of the things I wanted to like start incorporating or learn more about afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel similarly. Like, I can't imagine not going
Mhm.
now that I have because it is that time where you get to kind of revitalize or like re-nourish. Not that we get, well, everybody gets kind of weary from time to time, but we can be studying things on our own, but to be light lit up, I guess is the word I want to say, by other people who are passionate and sharing what they're excited about and like what they've been studying. It does give you kind of this, or I have felt this too, like this influx of like energy and vitality like into the practice and whatnot. And it's so fun to go and just hang out with other people who speak astrology, like other than the people in your peer community, how astrology literate is your family?
Not very. I mean, I've told them and yeah, I mean my husband, he'll go along with stuff. He's like semi-curious, but also mostly not that interested.
Hmm.
But happy to like listen when I will rattle things off. My daughter is 8, she'll be 9 in July. She's a Leo. Um, she is getting very interested, and I haven't done a reading for her yet, but I think that's like on the schedule for her ninth
Mm.
day. So she's like very interested and wants to know all about it. So
Yeah, I can imagine. That's really fun. I want to say like I was maybe not 9, but I definitely by 12 I was like I'm a Libra. Like I know what that is a little bit more. But
yeah.
that's so neat. I think being able to share that, that's the other cool thing I was going to say about NORWAC is like just getting to talk shop with other people in person. And my partner is very tolerant of what I do and sharing it, but in terms of like getting to speak to people that know exactly what you're saying, it's definitely makes it extra cozy and nice. And did you have a favorite session while you were at NORWAC?
Yeah, it's really hard to pick.
Hmm.
I think I was really inspired by Colin Bedell's I think it was one his keynote that was like about the Neptune Saturn conjunction in Aries, or he did a separate one on that, but it's kind of about just like this time in astrology and like very he just did such a great job encouraging and inspiring astrologers to like really step into the leadership role during this time. And like, I was just very moved by it. And then I also just loved Jason Hawley's Underworld class. Did you go to that
I
one?
didn't. I always happens to conflict with something else that
Yeah.
I'm doing, but
Yeah, no, it's hard. You have to make really hard choices.
mhm.
I wasn't even sure if his was one because I wasn't familiar with his work prior to going, but that was like that kind of blew my mind. And actually to circle back to what I was saying about maybe sharing astrology with my daughter, that's something, with my kids, it's always conflicting for me. Being like a ninth house Scorpio moon, I'm like, I don't want to like impose my beliefs on my children.
Mhm.
So I've always been very sensitive to that. But then something that Jason Hawley mentioned in his talk is that he is like a fourth generation astrologer or something. So like it's like, okay, that's really freaking cool. I'm like, it's a craft that I do want to like hand down to my children. And like, if they don't like it, they don't have to use it. We don't have to do it. But like, I want them to have the option, It's like, it would be the same as if I had any other trade. Like my husband is a amazing gardener, landscaper, tree
Mhm.
arborist, and like he's passing that on to our kids. Like so that was kind of an aha moment for me. But both of those
Yeah.
were great. And then of course Demetra George, but I could go on.
Yes. Yeah, we're going to talk about Demetra's in a second because it's so meta for where we both have been this year, which
Yes.
is so awesome. And that's one of the reasons that had me was like, oh, this is probably a perfect segue or topic for this. But yeah, I remember hearing about, one of the things I really enjoy about astrology too is also the data piece and the ability to correlate information over time and over history. That's amazing and great. But then to hear like Jason's background and perspective to where it was much more of an oral tradition, a storytelling tradition, a lived tradition, a go outside and look at the sky tradition, that I think is also much needed. And so to know that we have multiple ways of knowing and that we get to also co-create and participate in this tradition and make it our own, I think that is just something that just gets me really excited about. There's still so much to learn. And I think we're at this really, I'm trying to write about this right now. I say trying because I'm in a very inward focused time at the moment, which makes it very exciting for me, but I don't have things whenever I try to like put it out, it's not quite the same. But, we're really at this time where we've had astrology in our culture for some time. Now, I think it has waxed and waned in popularity since the beginning of astrology, but the average, thanks to the internet, I think the average person knows their big three or knows a little bit more than, say, me 20 years ago, just kind of like knowing my sun sign. But I think we're at this really exciting time where we're moving from learning the language to creating the language and then using it in beautiful ways to like inform our lives and enrich our lives. And so, yeah, I love the thought of you making that your own and passing that down to your children and them co-creating with that and with you should they want. And it's also interesting too. Amanda Moreno gave a talk on the midlife transits, and one of the things that she pointed out, which I thought was really awesome, was that so many of us like have this midlife thing that flips for us and sometimes we become astrologers or we become mystics at that time. And she was also talking about it from the point of view of like, and I'm paraphrasing. She was also talking about it from people that grow up with it and then might move away from it at their midlife. And I just thought like it's just so fascinating to see how how our lives are all woven the way that they are, and they can really take a whole bunch of different turns, and that we have such a wonderful, I think, way to engage with like the story and the meaning making of our lives, like through utilizing astrology to tell that story. Anyway, I digress, but I'm excited for you to share it with your kids, um, and to share it with us as well. And so you're working on a project, I'm going to call it a project. I don't know if that's the right term, um, about drawing down the moon. And it's a reflection or a collection of experiences that is, I think, inspired from, the women of early astrology. And so I was wondering if you could share a bit about that.
Sure. So we actually attended Demetra George's lecture on the early women of astrology and astronomy, and it was so inspiring to me. It was there were, I don't know, 10 or 12 women that she was highlighting from all different cultures throughout history. And to a lot of them, she was able to like attribute an asteroid and to like tie it into the chart of the moment of that class, which is just like, so magical when you're sitting there in the moment. Um, and how they were all showing up in these really important places in the chart that were just like, bringing the spirit into the room with us. It really felt like they were there. And then one of the women that she spoke about, um, I hope I get the name right, Gleaniki of Thessaly. Um, and the women who draw down the moon from the Thessaly region of Greece back in like, I think it was like the first or second century BC. Um, Terrible with like the dates around like that that zero mark. Um, but anyway, just the concept of like drawing down the moon and like bringing it down to Earth, just I don't know, the imagery and like the feeling of that just really spoke to me. And so I wanted to do a series on it. I got confirmation. So this is going on a little bit of a tangent, but
I
like,
love tangents.
okay. So the asteroid thing has been like this big deal for me since NORWAC. One like the first one that I kind of realized while I was there was Hestia, which I can maybe come back to. But then um, during that talk that Demetra gave was that she was talking about asteroids for each of these, and she didn't really have one to attribute to Aglaoniki. She thought that the Thessalia asteroid wasn't quite specific enough. It was just kind of maybe referencing that whole region, not specifically this one woman. But literally the night before at NORWAC, out in the lobby, I had been talking to someone who went to some class. I don't even remember what the class was. Um, I think it was an Austin Coppock student, so you might know them, but they were, it was a class that they had gone to at NORWAC the year before, and something about healers and alchemists and like the asteroids associated with them. And Thessalia was like the one that we were talking about that I had like written down and like looked up in my chart. I was like, oh, it's like on my descendant. That's really cool. And then we go to this class the next morning, literally like 12 hours later, and that asteroid got brought up again. And while Demetra didn't feel like it was appropriate, I I just made a mental note. And like then later when I was kind of on the fence about like what is this next project I want to do, I kind of had this drawing down the moon in mind and like looking for some kind of confirmation. I just like looked up where Thessalia was transiting, and she's right on my Jupiter, like 24 Aries.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, this is a go, and I'm gonna do this. And yeah, so I don't know exactly like I don't want to commit to doing like a full moon, new moon, like schedule, and I don't want to commit to like only those things either. Like I
Hmm.
just want to keep it kind of open and mutable, and like we'll see what comes out of it. But Jupiter is in Cancer, and it's like this year I want to commit to doing lunar things and talking about the moon. And yeah, that's kind of where it came from.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. Demetra's work is so incredible. And have you her book, Mysteries of the Dark Moon? Are you familiar with that?
I haven't, and I haven't started reading it yet.
That could be a whole, it's so rich.
Mm.
I cannot tell you how many times that I have read that book, and every time I pick it up, I feel like I find something I didn't see the first time.
Mhm.
And it's so good. And I think it's valuable for everyone, but especially for folks who have dark moons or new moons, I think we have a special connection. And then also for people, that work was really foundational in helping me kind of understand and unpack the occulted houses. So the second, the sixth, the eighth, and the 12th. So which we also have a special connection to, and kind of the just the fact that they're considered dark houses. And then there's the dark moon, and there's this demonization of the unconscious or of the lunar or of the formlessness, which is all really where anything new and powerful kind of resides or gets its start, or where it becomes um, I'm going to use the word recycled, but where things go to be renewed, and regenerated. And there's just so much there. And yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the moon because Jupiter in Cancer is my fifth house as well. And I also feel called to work with it, but in slightly different ways, but it's still lunar, it's still moon related. And the moon, just for me, given my background with my own craft, I'll just call it, is just such a huge topic to begin with. We just started it in devotional astrology and tarot, this container that I have going on that goes through September. And I'm like, okay, week one, we're just gonna like touch the surface of everything that the moon has to share with us and tell us and um co-create with us. It's like such a fascinating thing. And so when I saw that you had commented on a post that I had shared, or Britton and I had shared on a podcast that we had done last year, and then you had mentioned that you were listening to that episode. And in that episode, I referenced Demetra's upcoming talk because she hadn't done it yet. And then the funny thing, listeners, is that, well, it's funny to Janessa and I, it might not be as funny to you. That morning, I was coming in late, just right as it was starting, right as her keynote was starting on the women. And I was looking for a place to sit. Janessa caught my eye and waved me down. And I went, and I was actually sitting next to you during the talk that later you found out that I referenced. And we just had this kind of meta moment, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
full circle.
it was full circle. And so I'm curious too, like, um, the moon, is there anything in particular that you feel, I guess, magnetized to? I mean, the moon is, I mean, to me, it just feels, I feel magnetized to her all the time right now. But I'm curious, like, is there any facet in particular or way of working with her in particular? Like, especially this concept of like drawing down the moon, I think is really interesting that you um, were drawn to that terminology in particular.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think like there's so much there, but I think something that's always kind of, I think stood out to me is just like where, like looking even at like mundane astrology charts, like the moon is kind of where it like comes into reality and like comes earth side. And so like I think I've done some like forecasting with other astrologers looking at stuff like that. I'm like not an expert on mundane astrology at all, but like that is something that's kind of always like I was always the one pointing out like, oh, and the moon's in Virgo, so like we're gonna look for those topics to like be where maybe some of the gnarly astrology like shows up in the real world or something. And I don't know that that's backed by sources, but I feel like there is something there about like the moon being the closest body to the earth and like, yeah, just like that, like bringing it into
Mhm.
to this plane.
Do you have any favorite moon lore? I'll share something that I shared in devotional astrology and tarot, just to give you a minute to like think if there's anything. And because I was asking the same question of them, because so much of that course or that experience, that container is like how much we already know and how much is really available to us like intuitively. But one of the things that I always thought was interesting when learning about the moon was that just through its like astronomical inception of how it was actually created, is it's understood that before humans there was an impact from a huge asteroid that broke off part of the Earth, and the gravity kind of had it condense and be pulled into Earth's orbit. And so the fact that this beautiful moon that is a satellite of Earth is not actually, it's actually part of Earth just makes me like so excited with so many parallels, particularly around women in gender studies and like the creation story of like Eve and Lilith being created from Adam, and then this idea that the lunar is the unconscious, is the things that aren't said. She doesn't create her own light. She diffuses the light of the sun to the earth. And just the relationship not only between her and the sun, and I do think of her as female, but that's just a my preference. That's not a statement on the gender of the moon. Um, but that she has this relationship with the earth as well. And I love that. I love that so much. And I think the fact too that just out of all of the bodies of the sky, in addition to the sun, there's like that's the one we've always been able to see, you
Right.
know.
Totally.
So amazing. So I don't know if you have any moon lore or anything that comes to mind at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the at least for now, I can say emergently that like the working with my moon has really allowed me to just expand in ways that I didn't expect. Like I said, I have a Scorpio moon, which for those who don't understand immediately, that means that my moon is in its fall. It would rather be exalted across the way over in Taurus, where it's like the guest of honor. So it's kind of like doesn't really know how to do the lunar things or doesn't do them in the way that the moon wants to do them. So there's just been a lot in the past few years, but especially this past year, I did Britain's moon to moon class, Britain LaRue. And really, it's like just spending time with the moon, like co-regulating and like really actually leaning into like the Taurian things in life, like knowing that I don't have to like just making things more comfortable for myself, which sounds really basic and really dumb. But like it's like been a huge revelation of like I don't have to like make it hard. Like I can do things with ease and like have things that are pretty and like, do the tourist thing. And it doesn't have to be like this scarce like underworld like the upside down or something from like
Right.
stranger things. It can be like, lush and yeah, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think too, like just thinking about what you just shared, like you have sun and fall
Hmm.
and moon and fall. You have both luminaries in fall, and like what an invitation to do things. I mean, it sounds like that assignment to me is that you're likely having a lifetime of doing things that are not in your quote unquote nature,
Hmm.
like having to like go way out of your comfort zone. Yeah, or reestablishing what comfort is.
Hmm.
Yeah, because I think of like Scorpio moon, I think of Scorpio's ability to like retain and to hold
Hmm.
versus the distribution or the disseminating phase of the moon that is about releasing. It might be a little bit more challenging in
Hmm.
that way. Yeah. I feel like my moon is so dark that it's just ready to burn everything all down all the time. It's like it can be, it has its own unique challenges. It's a
Hmm.
moon. I mean, we both have dark moons and day charts.
Yes. Hmm.
Like what?
Yeah.
Like do you ever think about the irony with some of that? Like the fact that 12th house suns have day charts?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it th
Illegal.
this is where I think like the cosmos, God, the divine has a sense of humor, right?
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
there's things like that. And listeners, if you're not quite sure what we're talking about, it's just typically these some of these more hidden places of the chart that, and it's not for everyone. Like there's definitely people out there living their best life out loud for all to see, but generally speaking, sometimes folks that have their luminaries or their sect light in those occulted houses aren't always most comfortable being seen. And so it's just funny because we think of like daytime, day charts being like solar, being like under the light in the sun. And then you have this like, yeah, it's just, I find it ironic. I remember thinking about that. Like, it's just hilarious that I have my sun is being eclipsed by the moon. I
Hmm.
was born 8 hours before a solar eclipse. And
Oh, oh,
yeah,
right. Yes, okay.
Yeah, so I have this whole eclipse vibe going on. So not only is it my sun in fall, but it's being eclipsed. And the moon can't be seen either because it's in the sky. So it's this weird combo of things that probably makes more sense when you look at it from a sidereal perspective.
Yeah. Have you been particularly like sensitive to eclipses? Are they like really extra?
Yeah, it depends on like what's happening in my life. Like I'm right now we've got the nodes on our angle. So I'm like, oh boy, I gotta be careful like how I say things at this point. But other times I've had the eclipses happening in prime real estate, like right in the middle of my Libra stellium, and nothing really catastrophic or beneficial has happened. And I think it's because a lot of times I'm already with my Scorpio Mars conjunct Uranus in North Node, and with my Libra-ness that is in the eighth, that's ready to just burn it all down. I'm already kind of extreme in a lot of things, so I feel like if I was maybe less resistant to change, that I might experience some more of those things. But we'll see. I am kind of watching this. The eclipse that happened in March was right on my descendant, and Mars just entered Virgo, and it's going to cross that. And
Yeah.
so I have I have talked to my partner. I'm just like, we might be in for a rough go of it.
I saw the I was looking at the chart today for the I think it's the September 7th one
Hmm.
that it's like anaretic Mars in Libra like 20 on your sun for that one, which I'm not saying that to like
Yeah,
emphasize anything, but like it looks gnarly like just in general and
it
yeah.
does. It does. I have yeah, it's an interesting time. And I just think that's just what it is like we're in so much flux, and I feel lucky in this sense that I'm at this point of my life where I have created space to kind of see how things go and like let them happen. And yet it is hard not to catastrophize sometimes, especially when it's your own chart. It's when I'm seeing other people's charts, I don't tend to do that. But like, so I have to tell myself, like, Erin, if you were your own client, what would you say?
I
Because
totally
you're not helping yourself right now.
totally
And then when I hit the absolute panic time, that's when I bring in someone else.
yeah.
And I think as an astrologer, seeing other astrologers is just extremely beneficial and helpful.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we can kind of get in that space. But yeah, that's exciting about the drawing down the moon. And I hear you on the new moon, full moon. I got into a pretty good rhythm for a while of doing forecasts for full moon, new moon. And then now that has shifted for me. Like I didn't do a forecast for the last two lunar phases that we've had. And it was funny, like I had one almost 99% written, and I just lost complete interest in doing it that way. And that's another thing that I'm writing about right now is just if I'm bored writing it, you're probably going to be bored reading it.
Mhm.
So I am going to switch things up here. And I'm trying to come from a more lived experiential space rather than a I'm an astrologer, listen to me, this is what I see
Yeah.
coming. Even though generally speaking, I think my interpretations or enunciations or predictions are generally supportive. But yeah, it's like I definitely feel just the rapid amount of change that is with us right now and on the horizon with Uranus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that word that you mentioned that keeps coming up for me too, that experiential. It's like
mhm.
that was something I took away from NORWAC, I think from like Jason Holly's talk in particular, but even like even Colin's talk like all of it, it's just very alive right now. And
Hmm.
like a lot of what I feel like we've been doing as astrologers, myself included, is like flattening and like isn't really getting it's not it's not like
No,
across or something.
it's kind of, and this is no shade to anyone who writes about astrology or is an astrologer or talks about it on social media, because I think we're all in this together, and I'm including myself in this as well, which is one of the reasons I haven't published a forecast for 2 lunar phases at this point. But it is, I feel like we are really rapidly moving past the or we have moved past like where it's all just kind of like an echo chamber now. Like when I'm sorry to any, this isn't to upset or offend anyone, but like I'm not really interested in other people's forecasts or even the really, really big astrologers. I'm not even really interested. And with all their wisdom and experience, and they've read all the books and done all the research, they don't even always get it right. Like, look at how many people did presidential predictions. Not that I think that necessarily mattered in the long run for what's happening for us on a cosmic slash global level as a people, as humans on Earth. I don't know that that made a difference, but um, we don't always get it right.
Hmm.
So, not that that means we stop trying, but I think the way there has come a couple of times in my life, particularly in the last year, where like I didn't even need to consult a chart or my tarot deck. And this isn't, oh, Erin, you're so great or you're so special. This is accessible to anyone, I believe. But it gets to a point where you get in your own personal practice and your own connection to the world around you that you don't need it in the
Right.
same way. So I think that speaks to and I think that's where maybe we all are kind of coming up as a group of people experiencing this ability to not need astrology to be a crutch
Right.
because the trust is within. And I mean, how many times? And I just had I'm curious, have you experimented at all with electional astrology or like picking some dates and times for things? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm taking Kira Ryberg's course
Oh,
at the moment.
nice.
Yeah. But I did one recently that like really helped. So
Yeah.
just like a social media post, but it did
Oh,
better than
totally, totally. It definitely works. But one thing I noticed, so for example, this year I went and elected a bunch of dates for something that I was planning on doing. Looked great. It was like perfect, gonna work awesome. And you know what? When the time came to actually do it, it wasn't the right time.
yeah.
And so there's still, and what that pointed, I think I needed that lesson, not because I need better electional skills, because they're pretty great, but it shows that there's still a variable that even astrology can't account for. And that is like our own timing and unfolding of our lives, which also makes me think, this whole conversation of like fate versus free will. I believe in a combo of both. Like, I think there are some fated elements, but I think how we move between those elements, we have some degree, which may have some bearing on like the fate in the long run. Whenever I get to do something, or I always hear this phrase, fortune favors the bold,
Yes.
and that is the goddess Fortuna is the one who bestows, you know, fortune, the goddess of fate. And so if they favor the bold, then it seems like there is some modicum of flexibility like within the whole. And so those are just some things that I've been kind of holding lightly and playing around with. And so when I hear it echoed in other people's work, like you saying, I don't actually want to be locked into doing this a certain way, or this is kind of experimental, or it's mutable. It's going to be in a place that it can live and change and breathe. Um, it's really encouraging because then I know that I'm not just in Erin's like crazy vacuum space, where like, oh, I think that's a great idea. But yeah, been thinking about the almost like learning astrology and these other forms of divination as symbolic languages of communication to be able to have bidirectional conversation with the cosmos or with
Mm-hmm.
the divine, you know?
Totally.
That's kind of where I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much there. And I think like one thing that keeps coming up for me that, to reference it for a third time, but like Colin Bedell's lecture was like, what good is astrology really if it's like not helping anyone? Like it's not really helping anyone if we're like speaking super technically, if we're like fear mongering or just like listing off like, well, it's gonna be crazy. Like,
Hmm.
it's like, is that really helping anyone? Like, I don't know. And like really his proposal is that like the way that we can use astrology is to help people is by getting people comfortable being in the discomfort and like getting people understanding and like living in the paradox. And like
Hmm.
that is really that's like putting some light bulbs off for me. Like that's really kind of where my focus has been since then. And I think I was kind of getting there on my own before it, it's like, well, this forecast, I don't know how helpful it is. It can be, but yeah, if it's not like I don't know. Yeah, it's that I think that comfort in the discomfort, the holding the paradox of like too difficult or too like a really good thing and a really hard thing like being true at the same time. It's like this
Yeah.
moment of that. Like Jupiter is exalted in Cancer and Saturn is in fall in Aries. Like
Hmm.
we don't get to just have all good. We don't get to just have all bad. And like even yesterday, I was recording the Drawing Down the Moon episode for the Cancer new moon, and it was still like the void Gemini moon. And it's like, okay, it's a Jupiter cazimi, but the moon is void. Like, and I don't know, it's like you don't get it all. It's never all good or all bad. And like, I do think that that's a skill that humanity is kind of needing. Like, I think that's kind of where how we've gotten ourselves to where we are with like politically, like in our social groups and things where it's like we don't have like the critical thought capacity or like the understanding that like two things can be true at the same time. And
Hmm.
that paradox is really what's been missing. I feel like Jupiter and Gemini was a lot about the paradox and I'm kind of like seeing that now moving into real life or like the getting into my practice or something now.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think the idea of paradox, I think, is something that has always felt tangible to me in some way because it that's been my experience of my life. I've had a lot of great things happen and I've had a lot of horrible things happen, like most people have. And yet, given enough time, they kind of weave together in a story that does provide me with like faith and optimism. And then also I think just the idea culturally, like if we look, the one thing that I love that astrology can do, just bringing in the astronomical elements of astrology, is cycles of time, cycles upon cycles upon cycles upon cycles. And that's one thing Western culture is not good. It's permanent summer,
Yeah.
permanent productivity. We don't understand cyclical. If anything starts to go quiet or dark or anything, it's bad, it's wrong, we can't control it. It's like just that ability or that need to extract and to control everything. And that's one of the beautiful things I think that certain folks, more certain people really need to like learn from is that if we were in much more of a, and I guess the rhythm is self-correcting. And I think that's another thing that one of the slow magic tenets is that change happens when it's time and not like a minute before. And so there's a lot of like hemming and hawing, I think, in astrology community as well as other communities about like this big change and what are we going to do, and the revolution needs to be happening. We people have the power. Why aren't we using it? Blah blah blah. And it's like because it's not time yet.
Yeah.
I think it's like we can't there's a time of like bridge building that has to happen, and so we have to start envisioning what that is, and it gets revealed to us by spending time like in our practices and in our communing with the planets, in our own interpretations of what's happening. I was talking to someone the other day and I was like, I'm quiet and it seems like nothing's happening in my life, or maybe if somebody's observing it from the outside, but I am literally building a new house from the material of the old one.
Mhm.
And that it's just now starting to take form. And so I think a lot of us are feeling that, and maybe that is like Jupiter's ingress into Cancer, is starting to see how communities of care might look in the world, how we can care for what's directly in front of us right now, how the words that we use and the language that we use and the way what we focus on in our day-to-day lives, how that's what's shaping the future. Like we're living it right now. And that's one thing I think that looking at astrology in this way does provide some of that bridge or more of that paradox, versus like it's good or bad, or people in power, you're gonna have more power and they're gonna squeeze more out of the people who don't have power. And it's like, well, yeah, that's the story that's as old as time, you
Mhm.
know? I'm excited for Uranus and Gemini. I think because I have to be,
Mhm.
it's coming into like the foundation of our charts.
Yep. Mhm. Where's your IC?
It's
Or
not towards the end of Gemini, so thank goodness. So I have a while before it gets to like the IC,
yeah,
but it's going to be opposite my Venus. It's right with my Jupiter right now, right on my Jupiter.
that's
So
cool.
I mean, so far, nothing has the wheels haven't fallen off the bus yet. So not that transits like that are always like that, and I've been in a pretty kind of shake things up kind of period of my life. So I think that is another way that, again, I think it all has to do with if we're paying attention,
Right.
we don't maybe get smacked in the face quite so hard or in the ass. Goodness. Well, Janessa, this was so lovely to have you join us. I am thrilled that you are sharing your excitement with your work. And I was just looking over your bio once more and just thinking about like all the things that you're putting out and that you're working on. And so could you share for folks like where they can find you online?
Sure. So the best place is always my website, byjoveastrology.com. I'm also on Instagram at byjoveastro. I'm on Substack at byjoveastrology, or might be byjoveastro. I'm on YouTube, all of the places at either byjoveastro or byjoveastrology. And yeah, I've got the podcast that streams on all platforms. And I actually just released a new reading today that is something I incubated in Britton LaRue's The Magician's Table.
Ooh,
So
tell us
it's,
about it.
yeah, it's called A Fire Within. I had I'm still kind of finishing up a class called A Fire Within, but I decided to make a reading based on it. And really, it's a recorded reading, so you don't have to like worry about scheduling. And it's probably my most mystical offering. It's part channeled message, part meditation, part traditional astrology reading. And it's really just focused on like the darkest parts of your chart. I'm gonna go shine a flashlight and point them out to you. And it's just kind of an experience. So yeah, that's over on my website right now.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Well, we will link everything for folks in the show notes. And thank you again for joining us and bringing your optimism with us and your passion for astrology. It's been wonderful to chat.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was just a lovely conversation.
I thought so too. You're so welcome. I just love these episodes that ask more questions than give answers, don't you? I'm going to be mulling over this one for a long time. So many nuggets of things to kind of chew on and explore, which my brain just absolutely loves. And also just living in the day-to-day experience of it. So many of us forget that we're doing the work right now. Like whatever it is we're in, whatever goal we're trying to achieve, or whether we're just trying to get by, if it happens to be that kind of moment in our life, we are actually doing the work right now. And it is often through stepping back and looking back with that perspective that we can see the connection. And so, yeah, I love this episode so much. So, all of Janessa's links are in the show notes. So, be sure to give her a follow on all the social platforms and like and share this episode with a friend. I would love that. And if you feel called, if you love the nature of invisible things, I'd love it if you would take the time to write a review. It would mean a lot to me. And as always, if you'd like to learn more about me, you can find out about my offerings and what I'm up to at slowmagic.com. And I think that's it for now. I am sending you so much love from all the places in between. Until next time.